Time now for a look at what's grabbing headlines around the world, and I'm joined by Clément Bonnereau in the studio. Good morning, Clément. Starting out with what has been our top story today, and the comments from Donald Trump, those controversial comments about what happened this past weekend in Charlottesville, Virginia.
That's right. The New York Times says that Donald Trump did more than just draw a moral equivalence between neo-Nazis and left-wing activists. I quote, he relinquished what presidents from Roosevelt to Reagan have regarded as a cardinal duty of their job, set a moral course to unify the nation. The New York Times says that Trump's statement should not be dismissed as an offhand remark, but as a genuine reflection of what he thinks and of his inability to take up a moral leadership position. The Washington Post came up with this cartoon as well to criticise the president's attitude. You see him pointing at a map of Europe during World War II and blaming violence on both sides, the Nazis and the Allies.
Now, Donald Trump is also facing criticism from within his own party, with many Republicans openly taking on the president.
Yes, The Guardian says that Trump's comments are an important test for moderate Republicans who must find, I quote, the right way to turn away from Trump before the next election. European leaders must also show moral clarity. The Guardian writes, I quote, words are not enough. There is no place for special courtesies now.
Now, switching focus to Kenya next, where defeated presidential candidate Raila Odinga claims he's going to go to the Supreme Court over his claims that the elections were rigged.
That's right. Incumbent Uhuru Kenyatta beat Odinga by 1.4 million votes, but Raila Odinga accuses electoral authorities of fraud. Kenya's Daily Nation hails his decision to challenge the election in courts and not in the streets. The Star agrees and says the Electoral Commission must also act to diffuse tensions by providing all the relevant documentation it's promised. I quote, it needs to cleanse itself of perceptions of internal collusion with system vendors. The paper concludes, remember, perception is politics.
To Lebanon next, where the Rape Your Victim law has been scrapped.
That's right. The Lebanese Minister for Women's Affairs had described the law as something, I quote, from the Stone Age, but we learned that it was actually adopted from the 1810 French Penal Code and imposed during France's occupation of Lebanon after World War I. Lebanon's The Daily Star says the Parliament's repeal of the so-called rape law is a step in the right direction and follows similar moves by Jordan and Tunisia. L'Orient Le Jour agrees, but says that Lebanese MPs must do more to protect women from all forms of violence. Currently, Lebanese law does not punish rape of minors as long as they come with a promise of marriage. Last but not least, activists also want Lebanon's parliament to address the issue of marital rape, which is currently not recognised under Lebanese law.
And in some lighter news now, British actor Daniel Craig says he will in fact be James Bond once again.
That's right, and it's a case of never say never again. Daniel Craig had previously denied he'd signed up for new Bond films, but The Guardian says Hollywood simply could not afford to lose the British actor who helped turn the franchise into a global multi-billion brand. Skyfall became the highest grossing film in the UK until the release of the latest Star Wars movie. But it's not just about the money, The Guardian writes, also hailing Craig's acting skills, saying the 49-year-old actor managed to bring a more interesting, darker side to 007.
And finally from you, a rather unusual story from Canada. A woman found her long-lost engagement ring wrapped around a carrot in her garden. How on earth?
That's right. 84-year-old Mary Grams was devastated when she lost the ring back in 2004 and kept it a secret from her husband and children. Her daughter-in-law discovered the secret on Monday when she pulled up a carrot in her garden and found the diamond ring wrapped around it. Now, the ring itself was certainly worth more than a carrot, pun intended, but the good news is it still fits. And one last fun fact for you, Delano, it's actually not the first time that someone has found a ring on a carrot. In 2011, a Swedish woman found her wedding ring 16 years after losing it.
Interesting stuff. Clément Bonnereau, thank you very much for the roundup of what's making the international headlines.